I am delighted to have with us this morning Penny Sparling. Penny has been tremendously helpful to us in the past. Penny is a social worker in the child development program at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. And many of the families I know on the line here will be familiar with you, but those who aren't, welcome. And we look forward to this presentation, an important topic being discussed this morning. So without further ado, I will turn things over to Penny. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. That's a great introduction. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. Just give me a minute. Can you just let me know for sure that, or maybe Rick, you could just let me know for sure that you can see my.
Yep.
It's good?
Looks
okay.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you and welcome to my topic on family wellness throughout transitions. Today, I really want to talk about the various emotions that families may experience throughout transitional points of care and some strategies to cope and maintain wellness. So what is wellness? There's probably a lot of different definitions, but wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. So wellness could be impacted by all of the spokes in the wheel that you see here. It's important to note that while Duchenne has an impact on wellness, there are many ways to improve well-being by focusing on quality of life and strategies to address challenges that might arise. I'm certainly not an expert on your wellness, as each person's path is different and what works for one person may not always work for another. However, I feel that by focusing on wellness strategies in general, as well as at the various stages of transition, this will hopefully provide you with some ideas and resources to support you through your journey with muscular dystrophy. So receiving a diagnosis of Duchenne and learning to live with DMD has obviously a huge impact on families. All members of the family may experience strong emotions related to the diagnosis, and it can have an impact on many aspects of your lives, similar to the spokes that we saw earlier in the wellness wheel. Sometimes these emotional responses can be particularly strong during times of transition, such as at the time of diagnosis, when the young person starts school, during adolescence, and during transition to adulthood. Today, I hope we can talk about some strategies to stay well and mentally healthy, particularly during these times of transition. So I would like to do a quick poll so that we can know a little bit more about the people that are here today, and potentially I can focus a little bit more on the areas that might be most meaningful to you. So this poll is basically just asking which stage of transition you're at. So either recently diagnosed, say maybe within the last 2 years, starting school, at adolescence, or life after high school. If you're not exactly in a transition at this point, maybe just the last transition that you experienced, and this could be a family member or a person with muscular dystrophy. Now I'm gonna, bear with me, I'm trying to do this poll for the first time. Okay, we're gonna launch it now. So I'm hoping people can see it. Yeah, perfect. So I'll just give you a few seconds here to put your poll in. All right. All right, I'll give it a few more seconds. I see there's 15 of 28 participants who've responded, but perhaps not everybody's at their computer at the moment. Okay. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in a few seconds. Doesn't have to be exact anyway, it's just to give me an idea. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. So it looks like we've got, of those who responded, 53% are adolescents, 29% are in that life after high school, 18% are sort of at the starting school phase, and then there's 0% at recently diagnosed. Oh, I guess I could share those with you guys. I'm not sure. Can you, Rick, can you see those on the screen, or? I'm not quite sure. Okay. All right, I'm going to close that up. Okay. Okay, so most people experience a variety of emotions in response to a new diagnosis, but it's important to note that everyone reacts differently and in their own time. So some common stages of emotions might include denial. So even though you logically know that there's something wrong, you might deny part of the truth or all of the truth to protect yourself from emotional pain. Anger. So sometimes it's just easier to feel anger than the reality, the pain of the reality. You might question why me, or you may blame something or someone, but anger does allow you to start feeling again. Depression, at this stage, you may be grieving the loss of what you imagine life would be like. It's important. It is important to allow yourself the opportunity to grieve so that you can move on towards acceptance. Bargaining or negotiating, at this stage, you might dwell on what you could have done to prevent this, or you might try to strike a deal with a higher power, for example. And acceptance is coming to understand what this diagnosis means to you and your family. And although you will likely still feel sad at times and have a variety of emotions, you will be able to start moving forward. So these emotions don't always occur in a particular order, or you may not feel some of them at all. Sometimes you might return to these emotions, particularly during times of transition or change in function. It's completely normal to feel these emotions, and we will be discussing strategies to support you throughout this journey. It's important to remember that there will also be moments of happiness and joy, as although Duchenne impacts you in so many ways, it doesn't define who you are and who your family is. So with these emotions come some common concerns, often across many transitional stages. While you may have other concerns as well, these are just some common ones that families have shared with me over the years. So one would be worries about sharing information. So who to share the information with, how to share it, whether it's with family, with friends, or at school. Concerns about making friends or maintaining relationships, worries of like, will I feel included? Will I be treated differently? That kind of thing. Adjusting to new change in function. Mental health concerns. So we do see children, adolescents, and adults that might experience anxiety or depression or other mental health difficulties. School adjustment. So whether it's starting kindergarten, high school, or post-secondary, just worries about that process. And concerns or worries about the future. So I'd like to do another quick poll. Hopefully this will work again to get an idea of what you might be most concerned about. And I'm aware that there might be other things that aren't here. But from the ones here, please feel free to choose. I think you can choose more than one. So those ones that I just reviewed: sharing information, making friends, adjusting to new change in function, mental health, school adjustment, and worries about the future. So I'm just going to pull up that one. Okay. All right, I've launched the poll. Okay, I'll just give you a little bit more time. Okay, I think we've got 100% response rate. So I will end the poll and share the results here. So it looks like the biggest concern is worries about the future, followed by adjusting to new change in function. And then we have both making friends or relationships and mental health next, followed by sharing information. So thank you for sharing that with me, and hopefully we can talk about some of these things in the coming slides and discuss it further. Okay. So when dealing with worries, fears, and stressors, it's important to focus on strategies to maintain wellness while also addressing the concerns. So if you feel comfortable, please feel free to put in the chat any sort of strategy that may have helped you to cope since the diagnosis. I'm happy. I might consider sharing it, but I would, if you want me to keep the identity private, I will just share it without any identifying information. So I'm just going to continue on with some of these strategies, and again, feel free to put in the chat if you'd like. So the first strategy is taking care of your health. So whether you're a person with Duchenne or a family member, it's really important during any time to be trying to take care of your health. So that could be continuing to exercise, eating well, maintaining good sleep, making sure you keep up with your medical appointments, and practicing healthy coping. So that could be different for different people. Yoga, doing some breathing exercises, meditation, spiritual practice, counseling, any of those things. Sharing information about Duchenne, although can be challenging at times, but sharing that with family and close friends, as well as letting them know about your needs so that they can support you. And then asking for help. So that could be speaking up to family and friends and being really specific with what you need. Being willing to relinquish some control if it's possible. And basically, if anyone in your family is struggling with anxiety, depression, or other mental health difficulties, it's important to seek some support, whether it's therapy or counseling. So ask your team for suggestions if you're not sure where to access that support. There are also some resources at the end of this presentation that if you're looking for a direction on that. Give yourself a break. So I know that things can get really busy with appointments and doing different things, but even just a few minutes a day for yourself, whether it's just to, spend a little time laughing, sharing with feelings with friends, or it might be, pampering yourself with a manicure. It might be leaving the house and just getting a break. Doing something you enjoy. So just looking for hobbies, spending time in nature. Practicing acceptance. So when I mean that, I just mean focusing on what you can control and trying to look for that silver lining when you can. And sharing your feelings. So this could be with friends, family, it could be at a place of worship, community center, or a support group. And then nurturing your relationships. So it's really important to continue to nurture those relationships. Sometimes, for example, parents don't always cope in the same way as each other, which can sometimes lead to conflict in the relationship. So it's just really important to keep your communication open and honest, listen to one another, and then also to remember that siblings can sometimes feel forgotten. And although it's challenging, it's important to also try to carve out some dedicated time to spend with other children in the family so that the focus isn't always on the child with Duchenne. And in terms of friendship, sometimes parents have said that they feel like they have less time to spend with friends or that they may have less in common. Your friendships may change and evolve, and you may develop some new friendships, perhaps with others who can relate, such as through a parent group or even through Jesse's journey here. Before we spend some talking about each stage of transition and unique challenges and strategies, I'm just going to take a quick look to see if anybody has anything in the chat. Okay, so I don't see anything right now, and that's fine. So I'll just keep going. Okay. All right. Again, as I go through each section, feel free to offer any advice, tips, or suggestions you may have related to the stage we're talking about, and you can always put it in the chat. So at this, the first stage I want to talk about is just the coping with a new diagnosis. And I know that from what I saw in the poll that nobody here is at that stage, but you've all been through that stage. So I'll just try to maybe not spend quite as much time on this section. As you probably know, kind of that first, when you first receive the diagnosis, it can be very overwhelming and a little bit of shock. And it's a lot to take in. But one coping strategy I did mention here is learning information. So I think gathering information about DMD, learning about it, helps most people to cope, although some are only really able to kind of digest small amounts of information at one time, and that's okay too. Ways to get that information might be talking to your team, reading, and connecting to other families, such as and through parent groups, that kind of thing. I do suggest kind of trying to limit the online like looking, because I think sometimes there's misinformation or it just gets really overwhelming. So certainly there are some very reliable resources like Muscular Dystrophy Canada, Parent Project, Muscular Dystrophy, Jesse's Journey. You may also ask your care team for some suggestions. Going at your own pace, sharing information with family and close friends. I mean, families have told me that it can be difficult to repeatedly tell people about the diagnosis and to deal with their reactions. So some might prefer to tell people all at once, and others might take time to gradually tell everyone. But while it is difficult at times to share, I think for the most part, when they do know, it could help you to feel supported and less isolated. Okay, so setting up your support team. So this could be your medical rehab teams, your family members, friends, members of your community, or the school, just so that you kind of know who's there and who might be able to help you throughout your journey. Continuing to nurture close relationships. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Practicing self-care, again, just, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, relaxation. There are actually many groups online now to teach you these strategies. For example, I know that in Toronto, both SickKids Hospital and Holland Bloorview offer or have offered different mindfulness groups for caregivers. I know there are also similar types of groups for adolescents, for example. Ask for help. So again, just talking to a member of your team if you need some support, or talking to a therapist. Okay, so school entry. So typically the worries at this stage or the concerns might be about keeping up and fitting in, who, how, and what and when to share information with peers of the school, and concerns about kind of adaptations or supports for both academic and physical support in the school. So the first coping strategy that I'm suggesting is speaking with the school. So just to communicate with them, there's many resources available out there. The two that I'm most familiar with are Muscular Dystrophy Canada's school guide that they have, I think it's Muscle Facts, and I know Parent Project has quite a bit of information as well. Your team may be able to write a letter outlining recommendations to support your child or attend a school meeting. I know there'll be speakers on this topic later in the weekend as well, so I'm sure you'll hear more about that. Helping your child to nurture their special interests. So particularly activities that can be sustained as he gets older. And this will just help to build some self-confidence and obviously can bring some joy. Encourage opportunities for your child to socialize with peers at school and outside of school, and sharing information. So if you haven't already shared information with your child and their siblings at this stage, this will probably be a good time to start. And parents often tell me that at this stage, their kids start to come home from school and ask, why they can't keep up at recess, or they have questions. And I know that sometimes these conversations can be difficult and emotional, but I do think they can clear up misconceptions. They can help your child to understand his body and to gradually learn to advocate for his own supports. You can then consider sharing information with peers and classmates after you've had that discussion with your child. And this may help with just encouraging acceptance and support, and may reduce if there is an issue with teasing at all. If you are struggling with how to go about sharing information, speak to your team. I'm also happy to discuss this further if there's time and interest at the end as well. Okay, so adolescents. Adolescents with Duchenne have the same worries and challenges as all teens, including things like navigating dating and relationships, a desire for independence, future planning, thinking, what will you do after high school? What about post-secondary? What about employment or living arrangements? But in addition, adolescents with Duchenne may have some additional challenges or worries, like coping with changes in function, needing more assistance, and needing to get comfortable accepting help, and possibly worries about the future. So some of the strategies here you might have seen might be a bit repetitive from earlier, but some of them, so setting small goals, start taking some responsibility over your health. So that might be keeping track of your own medications as an adolescent, or starting to speak up more at medical appointments. Work with your team to find strategies for independence, such as making it accessible for you to enter your home, or other ways to help you physically to be more independent. You might practice using attendant care and getting used to directing your own care, so that I know often people tell me that their parents have usually helped them, and that it's a bit of a transition, and to get used to potentially having somebody else do that. From more of the emotional side of things, you might try some journaling or artwork to help to express your feelings. Try to continue or find activities that you enjoy doing. I remember a young man in our clinic who really loved power wheelchair hockey. He was very involved in it. They traveled, they competed. He learned great skills. He was part of a team, and he really found a community of support and lifelong friends there. Practicing being kind to yourself. You might try meditation or some breathing exercises, and get some support. Last year, actually at the Jesse's Journey, one of the young men was telling me about how he had started to have panic attacks and really benefited from talking to a social worker and learning strategies to manage his anxiety. Okay, and lastly, life after high school. So some of the worries or challenges that might come up at this stage could be similar to adolescence as well, but it might include new changes in medical status or function, learning to take more responsibility for your own health care, and learning to navigate at post-secondary school or a job or volunteer work, and possibly learning to live more independently if that's the choice that you make. So again, some of these strategies, they're a little bit different, but so for example, thinking about today, so focusing on the present and what you can enjoy today, even if it's small, as opposed to dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Give back, so helping others can build our confidence. They can make us feel needed and valued. So you might be volunteering or helping a friend, or maybe even helping at an event like the one this weekend. Making a list of coping strategies for when things get tough. So it's easier to think about these strategies when things are going well and can prepare you ahead of time. You might want to educate yourself a little bit about what to expect so that you can prepare for any upcoming physical and emotional challenges and get the support that you need. Ask for help. I know I've said this several times. This might be learning to ask for physical help, like attendant care, or emotional help. Connecting with others, again, the importance of healthy relationships. You may be interested in meeting someone who has the same diagnosis if you haven't already. Doing things you enjoy, which might build self-confidence, leadership, and it's a great way to meet others. And just remembering to take care of yourself. So try to make sure you're following up with all of your medical health needs, because this can also have a big impact on your mental health. Last year, when I spoke at this forum with a young man with Duchenne, he mentioned how important it was for his mental well-being to be a part of clubs at school. He made really close friends through mutual interests and was able to join some similar clubs when he went on to post-secondary school. And I think that just responds to those last 3 points on connecting with others, doing things you enjoy, and taking care of yourself. So just remembering that in spite of the challenges at each transition point, the goal of wellness is not just to survive, but also to make choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. So thank you very much.